Hello and welcome students once again to this Unstoppable ICSE series जहाँ पे we bring you the science syllabus especially in biology and chemistry. So the lectures of biology and chemistry have both started and we are almost done with the first chapter, and I have started with the second chapter, which is cell division. Yes, children? So, to take up this chapter, cell division, there are certain terminologies which were required, a detailed understanding of some of the terminologies that were required, like what are the chromosomes, what are chromatids, what is a chromatin fiber, and so on. So, these very similar sounding words had to be clarified. So, we also had done that, and now we are ready to start the chapter, which is cell division. Now, what is it that comes to our mind when we hear this term called as cell division? Well, that simply means that the cells are dividing, or the cells are, yes, dividing. I will not say multiplying, though in biology, I would want to specifically say that division and multiplication will mean the same things. That is, they are increasing in number. Okay, now what is this picture in front of you signifying? Now, this picture that is in front of your children, what is it signifying? It is trying to signifying, or it is trying to emphasize on the fact that all living organisms or all life on earth actually began with a single cell, which was called as the zygote, which had been formed as a result of the fusion between sperms and ova. So what can you see in this picture, children? What do you see in the picture? What you see in the picture are the sperms which are fusing with. So these are what, children? Sperms which are fusing with the ova or the egg. Yes. So all life on earth is actually a result of the fusion between the sexual reproduction, which occurs when the sperms fuse with ova. And that is a zygote or a single-celled structure, so which is called as the zygote, which is a fusion entity between sperms and ova. And this is one-celled zygote, it eventually multiplies into 2-cell, 4-cell, and then this 8-cell stage, or the mulberry stage, yes, which we call as the morula, which you see here. And then it further goes on to divide into more number of cells, which we call as blastocysts, and eventually you have this group of cells being defined or being formed, which eventually leads to the formation of various organs in the body or embryo, and finally the embryo or the organism, which is called as the embryogenesis. So what I want to emphasize here is not the process embryogenesis, which you see here, but that life originated from this one cell stage, from this one cell, which is typically about micrometers in the size of the range of around micrometers, that is 10 to the power minus 6 meters. And from one cell, which has the size of around 1 micrometer, we have ourselves developed into an organism which are made up of trillions and trillions of cells. So usually if we talk about human beings or of other multicellular bigger animals, then they are made up of 40 to 50 trillion cells. So whether I take the human body or you take elephant or such huge organisms or plants, which you see, they are made up of millions and trillions of cells, but they all started their journey of life into becoming such big creatures or structures from this one cell stage, which had the size ranging between as low as about micrometers. So what is the process that has resulted in the cells becoming so many in number from one cell to these 40 to 50 trillion cells? So you can see here the human body comprising of 40 to 50 trillion cells, which began its journey from a single cell stage, which we call as zygote. Okay, and we have all been formed. These many celled creatures have been all formed from this zygote. Now the question then also arises that why do cells have to divide in the first place? Why cannot all organisms remain as single-celled organisms in the form of a zygote, and why can't all the functions be carried out by one cell only. Well, it is seen that unicellular organisms, for better efficiency and working and enhancement of characters and feature, and as adaptation and evolution took place, what happens is that unicellularity eventually led to multicellularity, that you had eukaryotic organisms and then organisms which had multi-celled or many, or which were made up of many cells, which gave rise to tissues. Cells became organized into tissues and tissues into organs and organs into organ system. So more efficiency of functions were seen by different tissues and organs, eventually leading to better or leading to more evolved organisms. So that is what has multicellularity in fact achieved. Now, why do then cells eventually? So that really answers our question, that why do cells divide? Well, cells were able to divide because, or cells divided eventually because they had to help in the growth and the development of the organism. So, what does the first bullet point says here? That the cells divided, or the new cells had to be produced for growth and development of the organism. Then new cells also were created for replacement of the old and the worn out cells. Like in our body, the skin cells, a lot of lakhs and lakhs of skin cells are removed from the body each day, and they need to be furnished by the new cells. So for the replacement of the old cells, the worn out cells that get worn out or dead every day, or after their lifespan is over, then the new cells have to come over and take over the place so that the function can go on. The next is the repair. Like suppose in the case of an injury or a cut or a bruise or something, we see that suppose we have a cut in our knee or on our knee when we are after we play a football or something, we see that after few days the cut area once again it gives rise to new cells. So division of cells is also required for repair or the healing work to take place. So new cells have to come in and fill in the space for the lost cells or the dead cells or the injured cells. And next, it is also new cells are required for the purpose of reproduction, especially in usually I will call it an asexual reproduction, of sexual reproduction in lower organisms such as bacteria or some other lower organisms like the process of budding which takes place in a few other lower groups of organisms. That is a form of asexual reproduction. So reproduction is also one of the reasons why cells need to divide. Then next comes is the life cycle or the cycle of a cell. So meaning to say that, does the cell begin to divide the moment it is born or the moment it is formed? The answer is no. Now, just as a human being or an organism, the moment it is given birth to or the moment it comes on this earth, it does not get the capacity to reproduce. Yes, the ability to reproduce or the capacity to reproduction comes in when the organism has attained a particular stage in his life, that it has evolved a bit, and only after it has reached a certain stage of maturity that the ability of reproduction comes in the organism. So that's also for the cells. Now, every cell, I will say, that has a definite lifespan. It has a cycle. So that lifespan is called a cycle, which each cell has. So what is a cell cycle? Is actually nothing but a series or ordered series of events or set of events which culminates in the division of a cell into the daughter cells. That is, or in the simple terms, I would like to say that cell cycle is nothing but the tenure or the time span between when the cell is born until it is able to be divided into two cells, okay, or till it is able to give rise to or divide into the number of cells. That time span is called as cell cycle. Okay. Now, what does this facilitate? This allows the multicellular organisms to grow. So when the cells go through this cycle of events which is making them capable to divide or multiply into two or more cells. That this process is ensuring that the cell is able to grow in size. And the growth of the cell is also leading to the growth of the multicellular organisms eventually, and divide, and the single cell organisms to reproduce. So you can see this is what the function of the cell division is, that is able to give. Cell division is able to ensure that the multicellular organisms are able to grow in size, and they are able to then divide into 2 or 4 daughter cells, and the single-celled organisms like bacteria, etc., it is able to do the process of binary fission, or the process of reproduction is what is the function that is achieved through this cell cycle. So this cycle, you can see this picture has been represented or shown to represent the feature of cell cycle. So you can see here that this is a circle, or a form of a cyclic circle, wherein you see it is divided into various quadrants, and those quadrants are represented as G1, S, and G2. So G1, S, and G2 represent the different phases of the cell cycle, and eventually we have the last stage, which is the M stage, which is the actual stage wherein the cell is eventually dividing into two. And this picture is a representation of the division of the cell into two cells. Now, the next point comes is that after we have known what a cell cycle is, that it is the time period between the birth of the cell and its ability to be divided into two or more cells. So that the period in between is called as the cell cycle. Now, the next question comes in, is it the same in all organisms, or is it different in different organisms? Well, the answer is yes, it is not same in all organisms. Different organisms have a different cell cycle. Now, this bullet point, the second bullet point, talks about the yeast cell. It takes about 90 minutes, that is 1 hour and 30 minutes to divide into two cells, or two yeast cells. Then the fruit fly embryos, they take 8 minutes to divide, or the cell cycle is of 8 minutes. The mature cells take longer to grow. And what about our cells? What is the duration of the cell cycle in the typical mammalian cell? Well, the duration of a typical mammalian cell is 24 hours. Children, we need to remember this, that the duration of the typical mammalian cell is 24 hours. And some cells in our body divide very rapidly, like the skin cells, and some cells do divide very slowly, like for example the liver cells, which take more than a year or two to actually undergo cell division. Okay, in fact, and there are certain cells which will not undergo cell division at all. So at this stage, I would like to say that there are certain cells which will not enter the cycle of cell division after they have attained, or after they have grown to their fullest potential. So after they have reached their fullest potential, they will not undertake the division process. Rather, they will go into another set of cycle, which is called as the G0, wherein they will go into a kind of a G0 stage, wherein the cells say that no, I will not participate in cell division. Examples of such cells are our nerve cells, or the neurons. Now, they do not, once they grow, once they are formed and they grow, they are not able to divide into two. And some of the cells of our hearts, heart muscle cells, they also do not undergo division. So that explains the reason as to why the injury to our head, or brain injuries or heart injuries, can be really very, very fatal, because these cells actually are not able to multiply and replenish themselves if they are lost in the process of any kind of an injury. Now, we talked about what is cell cycle, and we said that yes, there are different phases in cell cycle. Then we said that the cell cycle is not the same in all organisms. Yes, it is different in different sets of organisms. And then there are certain cells in the organism which do not undergo cell division. For example, the nerve cells and some of the cells of the heart, which do not undergo cell divisions. And there are certain cells which take very long time to divide. For example, our liver cells. Yes, Now, next is when the cell is actually dividing, the process of division or the division of the cell is actually denoted by the phase or the term called mitosis and meiosis. These are the two terms which we use for the cell division. So when I say cell division, I actually mean that the cell is undergoing mitosis or the cell is undergoing meiosis. Yes. So what are mitosis and meiosis? These are the two types of cell division, and these two diagrams which you see here are depicting these two types of cell division. I want you to take a look at these two diagrams and tell me, do you see them to be exactly the same cells or same type of divisions, or what are the basic differences that you are able to pinpoint between these two types of divisions, mitosis and meiosis? Now, clearly looking at the diagram, we can make out some differences between the two. Now, why am I wanting you, I'm emphasizing here about the differences between mitosis and meiosis before I actually even started with the process of or elaborating the steps of the cell cycle. It's because, well, it is easier when we study it in the form of a comparative way that helps us to understand the processes more clearly when we do a kind of a comparative study. Then next is cell. By the word cell division, we actually mean either mitosis or meiosis. Yes. Now, this is what we have, and eventually we need to know what is mitosis and what is meiosis. Okay. Now, looking at the two diagrams, what can you make out, children? Well, typically, I would say that mitosis is shorter. The cycle of mitosis is shorter as compared to the length or the cycle of meiosis. You can see here. So this undergoes single division. You can see here one cell dividing into two is taking place at this stage. So I can say that single division, where one cell divides into two daughter cells. And what can you see here? The division takes place at here. So this is the first division that you see. I will also write here single or first. And here again we see next set of division, that is the second division, I would call it. Yes, one cell has given rise to two daughter cells, and then these two daughter cells have also divided to form four daughter cells. So clearly we can see that meiosis involves two rounds of division. Two rounds of division in my meiosis as compared to only one round of division in mitosis. Yes. Then next, what else can you see? Now, I will be telling you where do you see mitosis happening and where do you see meiosis happening. All that would be explained to you, but just take a look at these two diagrams which are representing the process of mitosis and meiosis and just try to bring out the differences between these two diagrams. So the first difference that we brought out was that mitosis involves only one round of division and meiosis involves two rounds of division. Then the next, you can see the number of cells. Here you got two daughter cells and here you've got four daughter cells. So can we see the next difference between the two? So mitosis results in the formation of two daughter cells and meiosis results in the division of four daughter cells. Now I am only talking about daughter cells and I am not at all talking about son cells. Why they are only called as daughter cells and why not son cells? That's not because I'm a feminist. That's because these two daughter cells or these four daughter cells will eventually grow and they will also divide into the respective daughter cells. So which is why they are always referred to as with the female progeny. So that is, they are called as the daughter cells. So nothing biased about the being a feminist or something. Okay, children. So these are the two broad differences that you can clearly make out by looking at these two diagrams. And the next is, I would also like you to count the number of chromosomes inside the cell. Now we have studied cell and the nucleus. So You can see here that 4 chromosomes, the parent cell has 4 chromosomes each. The one which is undergoing mitosis and also the one which is undergoing. Now, after the 2 daughter cells have been formed, in case of mitosis, I once again see that there are 4 chromosomes each. Now just count the number of chromosomes in case of meiosis. Since the parent cell had only 4 chromosomes, the daughter cell has got 2 chromosomes each. Can you count the number of chromosomes, children? You see that each daughter cell has got only 2 chromosomes. So that means what? The number of chromosomes get reduced by half in meiosis. So let me write down the number of chromosome gets reduced by half. So that's also called as haploid in meiosis. And in case of mitosis, what will I say? I will say that in case of mitosis, what do I say? That the daughter cells are genetically identical to parent cell. Yes, the daughter cells are genetically identical to the parent cells because they bear the same number of chromosomes as the parent cell had. Whereas in case of meiosis, the daughter cells are genetically different from the parent cell and also from each other. That we will see when we have a more colored diagram. So this was the little basic difference between the 2 types of division. And the last, not the last, rather it should have been the first division, that mitosis actually takes place in all kinds of body cells. You can see the organism. And meiosis takes place only in the reproductive cells of the organism, such as the, okay. So this was trying to just emphasize you about the differences between mitosis and meiosis. Now we just did that. Now this is the pictorial representation. As I told you that mitosis occurs in all body cells or somatic cells. Yes, and whereas meiosis typically occurs in only the gonads, I would say, the sperms and the ova. That is the cells which are going to produce sperms and ova. The meiosis will take place in only those cells. Okay. Now this process of formation of sperms and egg or ova is actually meiosis. Yes, it takes place in the reproductive cells, and that is why meiosis is also referred to as spermatogenesis in males and oogenesis in females. So meiosis is also named by spermatogenesis and oogenesis in males and females accordingly. Now this is also a kind of asexual reproduction in lower organisms. Now this is, you see budding taking place. This is a kind of a method of an asexual reproduction which you see taking place, whereas this is meiosis is usually found in multicellular organisms such as plants, animals, and also fungi. So, in the out of the five kingdoms that we have, as proposed by Whitaker, the last 3 kingdoms, that is Plantae, Animalia, and Fungi, they show meiosis, whereas bacteria or the Monera and the Protista, they show mitosis. Okay. Some members also show meiosis, but most of the members show mitosis, which is a process of division that takes place in all kinds of cells except viruses, and usually in all the somatic or the body cells. So this gives a more detailed kind of, you can take the screenshot of this particular slide, children, where you see the differences between mitosis and meiosis. So we just studied that mitosis occurs in all body cells. That is all soma. Soma means body. So all body cells or all somatic cells show or undergo mitosis. Here, only the reproductive cells, that is gonads, undergo meiosis. That is the cells which are going to form sperms and eggs, they undergo meiosis. What is meant for the process of mitosis and meiosis? Well, mitosis is responsible for the growth in the size of the organism. That is why an organism has grown to its particular size. That's because more and more cells of the same kind have been formed, and also for the repair of the cells and the tissues. Next, for meiosis, it is required for gamete formation and for ensuring genetic diversity. Now, remember that the gametes or the cells which were formed as a result of meiosis, they were all genetically different from each other as well as from their parents. So, this process ensures genetic diversity and eventually evolution. Now, where mitosis takes place throughout the life of the organism, because constantly new cells have to be formed because the cells keep on dying, so they need to be replaced by the new cells. So which is why mitosis will continue throughout the life of the organism, whereas meiosis will take place only during the reproductively active age of the organism. We have seen that the number of daughter cells produced in the case of mitosis was only 2, and the number of daughter cells produced in case of meiosis is 4. Then, what about the number of chromosomes passed on to the daughter cells? We did count the number of chromosomes and they were exactly the same in case of mitosis. So, we will see that full set of the chromosome is passed from the parent to the daughter cell. That is, full diploid set is passed to the daughter cell, where in case of meiosis, you see that only half set is passed on to the daughter cells. That's why it is called as haploid. Next, we saw that only the nucleus divides only once. That is, there is a single nuclear division or a single round of division taking place in mitosis, whereas we saw here 2 rounds of division taking place in case of meiosis. And as a result of such kind of a division in mitosis, where the number of chromosomes are the same and the daughter cells are exact copies of the parent cells, what do we say? That the parent cells, the daughters are exact replicas of the parent cell, and they are genetically identical with the parent cells. However, in case of meiosis, the daughter cells, since they are not similar to the parent cells, so that ensures what? That is because the genes are randomly assorted, and that eventually results in giving genetic variation and helping in the process of eventually evolution. Okay, so that ensures genetic diversity and evolution. The sexual reproduction or the meiosis that ensures genetic variation and eventually evolution. So that was about the differences between the actual dividing phase, mitosis and meiosis. Now coming to taking a deeper look at the cell cycle and trying to understand the different phases of the cell cycle. So this particular slide tells that the cell cycle has got broadly 2 phases, interphase and the M phase, or the mitotic or the actual dividing phase. Actual dividing cells. So there is a stage when the cell is actually dividing either through the process of mitosis or through the process of meiosis. And then there is another phase which is called as interphase, which is actually the preparatory phase. That is, the cell is preparing itself for the process of division. That is, for the process of either mitosis or meiosis, whatever is the type of cell. Okay, so preparatory phase is also called as the interphase. So it's actually, you can say it's a phase between 2 successive divisions, 2 successive cell divisions. Whether it is mitotic or meiotic division. So in between the 2 mitotic divisions, when the cell is born and it is growing in size, and then it is eventually deciding that it has to divide into 2. So it is preparing itself taking up all the energy and doing all the work that is required in order to divide into two. So two broad phases of cell cycle, interphase and mitotic phase. And as you see in this particular diagram, this circular diagram, the interphase, children, this interphase has further been divided into G1, S and G2 phase. That is, when the cell is preparing itself to divide, then it rests itself in the G1 phase, that is the first growth phase. We will see what are the events of G1 phase. Then the cell goes into the S phase, which is also called as the synthetic phase, and eventually the G2 phase, which is the second round of the growth phase. And after the cell has undergone G1, S and G2, it finally enters the M phase. And this M phase is actually divided into prophase, metaphase, anaphase, and telophase. So these are the four stages of growth in the mitotic phase, or the stage in, or the mitotic phase, that is the actual stage of the cell division. Okay, so take a look at the circular diagram. This G1 is a part of the interphase. The cell then enters the S phase, and finally it moves on to G2, and then finally it is prepared for division, and then it enters the M phase with the pro, meta, ana and telophase. And after it has undergone these two phases, then it undergoes cytokinesis. What is the cytokinesis and karyokinesis? We will just see. After the cell has undergone M phase, which is the phase of nuclear division, which we said is divided into prophase, metaphase, anaphase, and telophase. And after the nucleus has divided, which is also called as karyokinesis, through pro, meta, ana, and telophases, the cell then enters or gets ready to finally divide its cytoplasm also, so that the cell can eventually divide into two daughter cells. So the process of division of cytoplasm, children, is called as cytokinesis. So what do you see here, children? This is karyokinesis, that is the phases in cell division. M phase. It is first karyokinesis, that is the nucleus divides into two. Then after the nucleus has divided, eventually the cytoplasm divides. So cell division or M phase is actually karyokinesis plus cytokinesis. So that brings us to the end of this first part of the first part of the lecture of the chapter cell division, children. And I hope you enjoyed, or you did understand the basics of cell division. In this lecture, I have just tried to explain you what is cell division, what are the different phases of the cell division, what is the need for cell division, and what are the various steps in the cell cycle, or M phase, that is cytokinesis and karyokinesis. So we will be continuing with the various stages of the M phase and cell cycle in the next class. So do keep watching the videos, children. It will only help you in preparing yourself better for your board examination. So see you in the next video. Thank you very much. Bye-bye and have a nice day.